My name's Ethan Cole, and I've been driving trucks for over 15 years. I've hauled everything from produce to explosives, but nothing prepared me for the job I took 6 months ago. I'm a truck driver for Area 51, the most secretive military installation in the United States. You've probably heard the rumors: aliens, experiments, reverse engineered spacecraft. But what you haven't heard are the rules. The rules they make drivers like me follow. And let me tell you something, those rules aren't meant to keep us safe. They're meant to keep something else contained. Um, it all started one late evening when I got a call from a man who never gave me his name. He just said, "You've been recommended. The pay is good. The rules are strict. If you follow them, you'll live. Do you accept?" I didn't hesitate. Um, my life on the road had been rough. Bills were piling up, and I couldn't say no to the kind of money they offered. So I signed on. I thought I was just driving military cargo. I thought wrong. On my very first run, they handed me a sealed black envelope. The words printed across the front made my blood run cold. Non-compliance equals termination. Inside, there was a list of rules. The first time I read them, I laughed nervously. They sounded like something out of a horror movie. But then I realized they weren't kidding. Here are the rules, exactly as written. 1. Do not stop the truck between checkpoints, no matter what you hear or see on the road. 2. Keep the radio tuned to channel 19 at all times. If a voice that does not identify itself as control speaks to you, do not respond. 3. If you see lights in the desert that are not from your truck, look straight ahead. Do not acknowledge them. 4. At exactly 3:33 a.m., you may hear knocking from inside the cargo trailer. Do not stop. Do not answer. If something crosses the road in front of you, brake only if it is human. Anything else, keep driving. 6. When you arrive, do not look at the men in white suits. They are not there for you. 7. If you make it to the drop without breaking any rules, you live to drive another night. At first, I thought it was some kind of twisted hazing ritual, but the way the officer shoved the paper into my hand, the way his eyes avoided mine, the way he muttered, "God help you," before walking away, yeah, I knew this wasn't a joke. That first night, the Nevada desert stretched out before me, endless and silent. The road shimmered under the moonlight like a silver ribbon leading straight into hell. The trailer behind me groaned with every bump, like something inside was shifting. I told myself it was just equipment. That was easier than thinking about the truth. Around 1:47 a.m., I saw them. Out on the desert floor, faint blue lights flickered, moving in impossible patterns. Not headlights, not aircraft. They twisted and curled like fireflies, but far too big, far too bright. My instincts screamed at me to look, but the rule echoed in my mind: look straight ahead, do not acknowledge them. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. My eyes stayed locked on the road. But in the corner of my vision, the lights drew closer. They began to move alongside the truck, gliding smoothly as if they were pacing me. Then a voice crackled over the CB radio. "Look outside. They want to see you." The voice was wrong, too smooth, too calm, like someone trying to mimic a human tone. I reached for the mic, but then I remembered Rule 2. If a voice that does not identify itself as control speaks to you, do not respond. My hand froze. My throat went dry. The voice chuckled. "We see you, Ethan." I slammed the volume down and focused on the asphalt ahead. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might burst. By 3:20 a.m., I thought I'd made it past the worst. Then it happened. A soft thud came from the trailer. Then another. And then 3 sharp knocks. I nearly jumped out of my seat. My headlights illuminated the desert highway, but all I could think about was what was in that trailer. The rules were clear. Do not stop. Do not answer. The knocking grew louder, faster, like fists pounding against metal. Whatever was inside wanted out. And then my CB radio came alive again. This time it was the real control. Their voice was sharp, urgent. "Driver 17, maintain speed. Do not stop. Do not engage. Cargo is active." Cargo is active. What the hell did that even mean? My palms were slick with sweat as I gripped the wheel. The knocking turned into screeches, like claws dragging against the metal walls. Something slammed so hard it rocked the entire truck. I wanted to quit right there, dump the trailer and drive into the dark desert, never looking back. But then I remembered Rule 1. Non-compliance equals termination. I didn't know if they meant firing me or killing me. Either way, I kept driving. At exactly 3:33 a.m., the trailer went silent. No more pounding, no more screeching, just silence. I should have felt relief, but instead it felt worse, like something was waiting, listening. The desert stretched on, endless and hollow. My eyes were heavy, but fear kept me awake. That's when I saw it, a figure standing in the middle of the road. It was a man, or at least it looked like one. He was tall, thin, wearing nothing but tattered pants. His skin shimmered faintly under the moonlight, almost translucent. His eyes glowed faintly green. I slammed on the brakes out of pure instinct, and then the rule hit me. If something crosses the road in front of you, brake only if it is human. Anything else, keep driving. My tires screeched against the asphalt. The truck shuddered to a halt just a few feet away from the figure. He didn't move. He just stared at me. Then his jaw unhinged, stretching wider than any human mouth should. A sound poured out, not a scream, not a roar, something worse. It was like 1,000 voices crying at once, overlapping in unbearable harmony. I snapped out of it, slammed the gas, and the truck roared forward. The figure didn't dodge. The moment the truck should have hit him, he vanished. Gone, like he'd never been there. By the time I reached the base, I was shaking so badly I could barely keep the truck on the road. Floodlights illuminated the entrance. Armed guards waved me through without a word. As I rolled up to the unloading area, I remembered the final rule. When you arrive, do not look at the men in white suits. They are not there for you. They were waiting. 6 of them, lined up by the trailer. Their suits weren't like hazmat gear. They were wrong. Too smooth, too seamless, as if the material was part of their skin. Their faces were covered by dark visors that reflected nothing. I kept my eyes forward. I heard them moving behind me, their footsteps strangely synchronized, like one sound instead of many. And then I heard it. The trailer door creaking open. Something wet hit the pavement, something that hissed when it touched the ground. One of the suited men whispered something in a language I couldn't understand. Another answered with a hiss. I wanted to look. God, I wanted to look, but I didn't. Because the last thing I remember before blacking out was a voice. Not from the radio, not from the men, from inside my head. You will drive again. I woke up hours later in my truck cab parked outside the base. The trailer was gone. My envelope of rules was back in my lap. A fresh note was clipped to it. Job complete. Report tomorrow night. Same rules apply. I should have quit. I should have driven far away and never looked back. But the money was too good. And worse, something inside me wanted to go back. Something whispered to me in the silence of the desert, something that wasn't human. I should have walked away after that first run, but I didn't. The next night, I found myself back at the same desolate checkpoint on the edge of the Nevada desert, watching as the guards in black visors slid a new sealed envelope across the desk to me. The same rules were printed inside, word for word, but this time a new line had been added at the bottom, handwritten in red ink. Rule 8, do not speak to it. If it speaks to you, you did not hear it. That was the moment my stomach dropped, because the way they wrote it, so casually, like it was just another instruction, it meant this wasn't new. It had happened before. The cargo that night was heavier. I could feel the strain in the truck's suspension as soon as I pulled onto the highway. The trailer swayed unnaturally, as though whatever was inside wasn't secured, as though it was moving. The desert around me was black as pitch, lit only by the dull headlights of the truck. Every shadow felt alive, shifting at the edge of my vision. I told myself to stay calm, stick to the rules, stay alive, but the desert has a way of playing tricks on your mind. Around 12:40 a.m., the CB radio crackled. Driver 17, maintain your course. Do not deviate. It was control. Their voice was firm, calm. But then, just a second later, the same voice spoke again, only it wasn't the same. Driver 17, we've been waiting for you. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. It was my voice, my exact tone, my exact rhythm echoing back at me through the radio. I switched the volume all the way down. Rule 2 burned in my head. Do not respond. But even with the radio muted, I could still hear it. Not through the speakers, through the cab itself, through the rattling of the metal frame. You shouldn't be here, Ethan. The first hour crawled by like years. Then, at 2:15 a.m., I spotted something moving in the desert to my left. At first, I thought it was a wild animal. Coyotes, maybe, but no. This was taller, much taller. A figure, pale and elongated, loped alongside the truck with jerking, unnatural strides. Its arms dangled down past its knees, swinging like pendulums. It wasn't running. It was gliding, keeping perfect pace with me without a sound. I locked my eyes on the road. Rule 3 was clear. Do not look at the lights or anything else out there. But the figure didn't want to be ignored. It drifted closer, its face tilting toward my cab window. Its head snapped upward with a sharp, bone-cracking sound, and I saw its face, if you could call it that. No eyes, no nose, just a wide mouth stretching from cheek to cheek. It smiled at me. I nearly lost control of the wheel, and then, just like that, it was gone. At 3:01 a.m., the trailer came alive. This wasn't the faint thudding I'd heard the night before. This was violent. Something inside slammed against the walls so hard the entire truck shook. The metal screamed under the pressure. I gritted my teeth, knuckles white on the steering wheel. Control's words from the first night echoed in my head. Do not stop. Cargo is active. The pounding turned into scratching. Long, sharp claws dragging against steel. Sparks flew from the back of the trailer. And then I heard it. A voice, but not from the radio, from the trailer itself. Ethan. The sound was wet, gurgling, like something trying to learn how to speak through a mouth not made for human words. My blood ran cold. Rule 8. Do not speak to it. If it speaks to you, you did not hear it. I pressed harder on the gas, praying the truck would hold together. Ethan, help us. The words weren't alone. Beneath them, I could hear multiple voices, overlapping men, women, children, all crying out from inside the trailer. Please, let us out. It hurts. Help us. My vision blurred with panic. Were those people in there? Was I driving a prison instead of a cargo trailer? For a moment, my foot wavered on the pedal. For a moment, I almost stopped. But then I remembered the shimmering man on the road, the lights in the desert, the suits at the base. This wasn't human. Whatever was in there was wearing voices like masks. I didn't stop. At 3:33 a.m., the noise stopped again. Silence, heavy and suffocating. The kind of silence that feels like the air is holding its breath. And then a hand. A pale, deformed hand, too long, too thin, pushed out from the seam at the back of the trailer door. The fingers scraped against the metal, bending backward as if bone meant nothing. I watched in the side mirror, frozen, as more hands pressed out from the door, clawing at the air. Dozens of them. Hundreds. The trailer doors never opened. The metal never bent. But the hands were real. I drove faster. As I neared the base checkpoint, the desert stretched wider, emptier. My headlights cut through the darkness like a knife. That's when something darted across the road ahead. At first, I thought it was a deer, but then I saw its face. A child. A little girl no older than 10. Her hair tangled, her nightgown stained. She stood in the middle of the road, arms raised. "Daddy, stop!" she screamed. My chest tightened. My hands slammed the brakes out of instinct. And then Rule 5 flashed in my head. If something crosses the road in front of you, brake only if it is human. Anything else? Keep driving. I hesitated. My foot hovered. The girl's face twisted. Her mouth stretched wide, wider than her head could hold, splitting her skin at the corners. Black teeth spilled out like needles. I hit the gas. The truck roared forward, tearing straight through the apparition. She exploded into a cloud of ash that dissolved into the desert air. When I reached the base, the men in white suits were waiting again. But this time there were more of them. A dozen, maybe more. They surrounded the truck, their movements eerily synchronized, as if they were all being controlled by the same hand. The trailer doors hissed open. I didn't look back. I didn't want to see what was inside, but I couldn't block out the sound. A wet, tearing noise like flesh being peeled apart. A shriek that rattled the glass in my cab. The men in white hissed back in unison, their voices rising in a language no human throat should be able to form. And then, silence. A gloved hand tapped my window. I jumped, nearly hitting my head on the cab ceiling. The man in white didn't speak. He just handed me a new envelope. Inside was a single card. On it, in the same red handwriting, was a new rule. Rule 9. If you begin to dream of the desert, do not sleep again. I looked up, but the man was already gone. The suits had vanished, the trailer was gone, and I was sitting alone in the cab, the envelope trembling in my hands. The desert outside was still. Too still. And in the silence, I realized something. I hadn't just signed up to be a driver. I was a part of it now, and whatever it was, it wanted me back on the road. I didn't sleep after that second run. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the pale hands clawing from the trailer. I heard the voices, those fake, pleading voices, begging me to stop. But worse than that, I started to dream of the desert. I didn't mean to. I tried to stay awake, drinking coffee until my stomach burned, blasting static through the radio just to keep my mind occupied. But exhaustion always wins. And when it did, I saw it. The Nevada desert, stretching forever. But not like it is during the day. No. This desert was alive. Its sand shifted like it was breathing, pulsing in rhythm with something beneath the surface. The sky above was wrong, a deep, oily black that shimmered with veins of green light. And standing there in the middle of it all were the men in white suits. Only this time I realized they weren't suits. Their bodies were smooth, seamless, faceless. The visors I thought were helmets were actually eyes. Hundreds of them shifting beneath the surface of their skin, watching me from every direction. They didn't move, they didn't speak, but I could hear them. One more run, Ethan. One more run, and you'll understand. I woke up screaming, and taped to my dashboard, fluttering in the stale air of the cab, was another envelope. This one didn't contain rules. Not exactly. It contained a map, a route I'd never driven before. Deeper into the desert, far beyond the base. No drop point, no destination, just a line leading to the middle of nowhere. On the back of the map, scrawled in the same red handwriting, was a single sentence. Final delivery. Do not fail. I told myself I'd quit, that I'd drive away, leave the state, hell, maybe even leave the country. But as soon as I thought it, a sharp, sharp pain shot through my head, blinding and unbearable. And then I heard it. That same voice inside my skull, the one from the first night. You will drive again. It wasn't a choice. It never had been. That night, I hooked up to a new trailer, heavier than anything before. So heavy, I swore the tires would blow before I made it a mile. The guards avoided my eyes. Nobody spoke. When I climbed into the cab, the air felt charged, humming with energy. My hands trembled as I gripped the wheel. The desert swallowed me whole. Within the first hour, the trailer began to move. Not shake, not rattle. Move. It felt like something alive was crawling inside it, shifting its weight from one side to the other. My mirrors showed nothing, but I could feel it pressing against the frame, bulging outward, as though the walls of the trailer were just a thin shell struggling to contain what lived inside. At 2 a.m., the CB crackled. Driver 17, this is control. Maintain course. For the first time I answered. My voice was hoarse. What am I carrying? Static. Then a long pause. Driver 17, you don't want to know. But I did know. I remembered the voices in the trailer, the hands, the child in the road. They weren't random. They weren't accidents. The government wasn't just containing something. They were feeding it. Every rule, every test, every drive into the night, it wasn't for my safety. It was part of the ritual. And I was the ritual. At 3:20 a.m., the knocking began again, louder than ever. Each slam rattled the bolts from the frame. The rearview mirror shook violently, but I didn't look. I couldn't. Then came the voices, but this time they weren't begging. They weren't pretending. They were angry. Ethan, you are ours. The trailer screeched as something massive dragged its claws down the inside walls. Sparks lit the road behind me, glowing red against the asphalt. Let us out, it roared, and the sound was so loud my windshield cracked down the middle. Rule 8 screamed in my head. Do not speak to it. If it speaks to you, you did not hear it. But how could I ignore it now? It was all around me, inside me. My ears rang with its voice. My blood vibrated with it. I nearly broke. At 3:33 a.m., everything went silent, and then the trailer doors blew open. I didn't stop the truck. I couldn't. But in my mirrors, I saw them, shapes, hundreds of them, pouring out of the trailer like liquid shadow. They slithered and stretched, bodies shifting into impossible forms, some tall and thin, others crawling on too many legs. Their mouths glowed faintly green, lined with rows of teeth that never ended. And yet, they didn't fall behind. They kept pace with me, surrounding the truck in a swarm of living darkness. One of them slammed against the cab, its mouth stretching across the side window. Rows of eyes blinked open across its face, all of them staring straight into mine. You bring us home, it hissed. The road ended. There was no checkpoint, no base, no lights ahead, just sand stretching into eternity. But my hands wouldn't stop. My feet wouldn't move from the gas. It wasn't me driving anymore. It was them. The swarm closed in, merging together, forming a single colossal shape that blotted out the stars. The desert beneath me pulsed, alive, live, welcoming. The map had led me here for one reason. This was never a delivery. This was a return. As the truck barreled into the endless sand, the ground split open. A massive fissure tore through the desert head, glowing with green light. The air stank of burning metal and rot. The thing that rose from the depths was not of this world. A mouth miles wide opened in the earth, lined with teeth that glistened like obsidian. The swarm screamed in unison, a sound that shattered glass and made my bones vibrate. And then I understood. The rules weren't for me, they were for it. To keep it fed, to keep it calm, to keep it contained beneath the desert. And I had just delivered its meal. The last thing I remember was the truck tipping forward, the cab tilting as the ground gave way. I was falling into the gaping maw of the earth itself. The voice inside my head whispered one final time, "You drove well, Ethan. Now you drive forever." I woke up on the highway. The truck was gone. The trailer was gone. But the desert, it wasn't empty anymore. Shapes moved in the distance, shadows pacing me even though I wasn't driving, lights flickering in patterns that weren't human. And when I looked in my mirror, I didn't see my reflection. I saw them, smiling, waiting. Because the truth is, I never left the desert that night. I never escaped the rules. And if you ever find yourself driving through Nevada late at night and you hear knocking on your trailer at 3:33 a.m., don't stop. Don't listen. And for God's sake, don't take the job. The end.